האם זה באמת סגולה בדוקה? הסגולה ללמוד בזה?
All right, before we start, it must have been 4 years ago. I had just finished treatment for an illness, and a very old and good friend of mine, Ushi Rosen, sent me a set of the Zera Shimshon and said, just look at the introduction, just read the introduction. And of course, you read about the Skulos, and it was unbelievable. And it was just such an amazing thing for Ushi to think about me and to send it. The Hebrew, I have trouble with, so I called one of my oldest and dearest friends in the whole world, Rabbi Kahn. Rabbi Kahn and I grew up together in New Orleans, and literally, we've known each other very closely for 40 something years. I completely forgot how beautifully Rabbi Kahn gives a shiur. So I told him about the sefer and all the skulos, and he immediately was interested. So he got a set of the svarim, and we looked through it, and we started learning the shiur, and we started putting it on this YouTube channel. And I started putting the link just wherever I could on Facebook and sending it to friends. So this grew. So one day I get a phone call from a woman who said she wasn't getting her daily phone call from the Zera Shimshon, and she wanted to make sure that she was put back on a list. And I said, I happened to get that phone call, but it's not us. She says, well, Rabbi Binyamin Pashkas gave me your name and said you could help me. So of course, Rabbi Binyamin Pashkas famously was the one who someone showed a very old copy of the Zera Shimshon sefer, and he is the one who arranged for it to be reprinted, the Hebrew, the 2-volume, and he worked with ArtScroll to get the English Svarim printed, and he started a Zera Shimshon, worldwide Zera Shimshon website that has these beautiful newsletters every week on the Parsha, full color, and him and Rabbi Zilberberg in Eretz Yisrael. And we started talking, and they loved what we were doing. Rabbi Kahn's shiur, already we were getting 60, 70 views a week. And Rabbi Zilberberg asked me if I wanted to join the worldwide Zera Shimshon YouTube channel, which of course I did. He only had 3 videos. And I said to him, well, why don't we just start uploading, yours to ours? So let me show you what this has grown into now. This is going into our 4th year, because it's really unbelievable. 4 years in, there are now 1,359. This will be the 1,360th shiur on the Zera Shimshon channel, 200 of which will be Rabbi Kahn's. There's now a total of 28 different speakers who contribute to the website. The total views, people have seen 42,534 times that they've come and watched a video, over 6,600 hours of Torah from the Zera Shimshon YouTube channel. And we now have 372 subscribers. We get about 10 a week. We get about 10 a month, roughly. And our videos, the Zera Shimshon videos, have shown up on Google searches over 450,000 times. I mean, just again, this is something that Ushi Rosen started and Zvi took to the next level. Over the last 7 days, the site has 471 people have come to watch, over 69 hours just in the last week. Of the top 15 most viewed shiurim, Zvi is 7 of them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7 of the top 15 is Rabbi Kahn. So even though there's 28 different speakers, just a testament. And Zvi, you didn't know this, but just a testament to how beautifully you give a shiur. And here it is right here. My attitude personally is, in certain things like this, you try to do something right. You try to do something good, and you see where Hashem takes it. And I know that Zvi will agree this has grown beyond all of our concept of what it would be. Also, I have to mention, life is not without challenges, but I think, Zvi, you would also agree that the last 4 years, Baruch Hashem, everybody's healthy and everybody is well. And I know you lost your father recently, but Kanai Nahara, an unbelievably ripe age, and it's never the right time. But thank God, our families have really enjoyed Mazel to recognize and be grateful for. And I want to thank Ushi. Ushi's got to go. I think he's at a chasana, but he came on, and I just want to thank Ushi for getting this whole thing started, because it was an unbelievable act of generosity.
Well, thank you, Steve, because I just made a simple gesture. You're the one who who took it to where it's at now. So
apparently there are no simple gestures, Ushi. I guess
there certainly isn't. That's true. There certainly isn't. So. All right, thank you. It's a real inspiration. Right. Although I'm not on live every week, I do watch the Shiurim on YouTube.
Baruch Hashem. But the point is, we've recorded 200. This is the 200 shared, and I just want to thank Rabbi Kahn. It's added to my life, and I want to thank the regulars, most of which are on here, and I want to thank Rabbi Austin.
Steve and I would be talking to each other if it wasn't for you.
So thank you.
Okay, just before I begin, it goes without saying that Steve, in his humility, didn't mention himself, which he never would, but he is truly the one man without whom none of this would have been possible. None of this is possible and would not continue to happen. Steve's the moving force behind this whole thing, not just for our part of the Zera Shimshon learning, but all of the other shiurim that are being videoed and being taped and being made available to the public. So Steve, we obviously can't thank you enough for everything you've done and continue to do. We are in Zera Shimshon on Parshas Vayeshev, Os Yud Aleph, section 11. Before we begin, we're going to take a look at 2 psukim from Parshas Vayeshev, and they come from the famous incident of Yehuda and Tamar. And we're going to pick it up, the part of the story really towards the end of that incident, in which Tamar is about to be burned. I don't want to say burned at the stake, but burned because she went and apparently everyone thought did an act of tremendous immorality and became impregnated when she was not married and should have been waiting to marry Yehuda's youngest son, Shelah, and everyone assumed that didn't happen because here she was pregnant, and Yehuda himself, as we'll see in a moment, said, Yehuda right before this says, take her out to be burned. So now we're going to pick it up from there. This is Perek Lamed Ches, of course, in Bereshis, Psukim Chav Hey and Chav Vav. He mutzeis, she was being taken out, v'hi sholcha el chamiha lemor. And she sent a message to her father-in-law saying, Le'ish asher eile lo anochi hara. To the man that these things belong, I became pregnant. Vatomer, and she added, she said, Haker na, look please, or recognize please, Lemi hachosemes v'hapesilim v'hamateh ha'ele. To who belongs this signet and these cords and this staff? And these were items that, of course, belonged to Yehuda, who she had been impregnated by without his knowledge. But she says, these items belong to the man who impregnated me. Vayaker Yehuda. And Yehuda recognized the items, and he had, at that moment, the opportunity to not say a word except burn her, and he would have completely been able to cover up his involvement, but that's not what happened, of course. Vayaker Yehuda, and Yehuda recognized the items as his own. Vayomer, and he said, Tzadka mimeni, she is the righteous one. These items are from me. Ki alkein lo nisatiha l'shela v'ni, and she did this because I did not give her to my son Shelah, which Yehuda had told her he would do, and he did not do so. And therefore, A, he saved her life, and B, he publicly admitted his own guilt in front of everyone and brought that shame upon himself in order to tell the truth and to save Tamar's life. Velo Yosaf od lidata, and he no longer continued to be intimate with her. few more psukim continue to wrap up that story, but those are the two psukim that the Zera Shimshon is going to talk about, especially as we'll see one of those two. Let's get right into the piece, Os Yud Aleph, section 11. Sota Perek Kama. The Gemara in Maseches Sota in the first Perek quotes the pasuk, quotes one of the two psukim we just looked at. Vayaker Yehuda, and Yehuda recognized the items, Vayomer, and he said, Tzodka mimeni, she is the righteous one, mimeni, these items came from me. Hainu de Omer Rav Chanan bar Bizna, this is what Rav Chanan bar Bizna said, v'chulei, about this incident, and here we're going to hear his comments. Yosef shekida shem shamayim baseser, Yosef, who sanctified Hashem's name privately and in isolation, and that of course is a reference to Yosef refusing to give in to the entreaties of Ashes Potiphar, Potiphar's wife, who was trying everything she could do to seduce him, and he refused and ran away. Zocha v'hosifu lo os mishmo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because of that act, that great act of Kiddush Hashem, of sanctifying Hashem's name in that episode with Ashes Potiphar, with the wife of Potiphar, he merited, and a letter was added, a letter from Hashem's name was added to his name, Dichsiv, as it's written in Tehillim, Eidus bihosef samo. Hashem made a testimony for Yosef, but you can see it's not Yosef, it's bihosef. And a hey has been added between the yud and the vav into Yosef's name. And the Gemara is telling us that hey comes from the yud and the hey and Hashem's four-letter name, the yud and the hey and the vav and the hey name of Hashem. Hey comes from there and is added to Yosef's name because of his act of Kiddush Hashem. Yehuda shekidei shem shamayim b'farhesya, but Yehuda, who sanctified Hashem's name in publicly sanctified Hashem's name, and that is, of course, a reference to his actions when Tamar, that we just read about, when Tamar was being taken out to be executed. Zocha v'nikra kulo al shmo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He merited that he was referred to completely with the name of Hashem. Yehuda's name has all four letters of the four-letter name of Hashem in his name. The Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey are all in the name Yehuda. And so Rav Chanan bar Bizna is telling us that he received the full four-letter name in his, the four letters of Hashem's name in his name Yehuda. Ad Kan, until here is a quote from the Gemara in Maseches Sota. Next paragraph. Kosher, we have a problem. Di bishlama etzel Yosef. It makes sense regarding the point about Yosef. Shayach lomar zocha. It makes sense. It's applicable to use the term merited, that he merited to have a letter added to his name. She'achar she'osa maseh hatov. Because after he did the good action of refusing to be with Ashes Potiphar, nitan lo secharo, his reward was given to him. He did an action. That action led to a Kiddush Hashem, a sanctification of Hashem's name, and he receives a reward of having one of the letters of Hashem's four-letter name inserted into his name in the pasuk in Tehillim. Aval Yehuda, but when it comes to the case of Yehuda, Karu Osokein Be'ez Haleda. Yehuda received his name at the time of his birth. Letters were not added to his name, but rather he was given a birth name of Yehuda. V'lo shayach lomar bo loshen zocha. And therefore, it doesn't seem applicable. It doesn't seem appropriate to use the language of Zocha. He did something and merited some kind of addition to his name, because that's not what happened. So the question that the Zera Shimshon is asking is a very powerful one, and he's distinguishing between the case of Yosef, who did an action and later received an additional letter added to his name, and Yehuda, who was born with the name Yehuda years and years and years, decades before the incident when he was a much older man, and he confessed, yes, he did an incredible act of public admission of his involvement of the Maisa with Tamar and saved her life. And he did all of those things. Yes, it's true, but he already had the name Yehuda way before that. So how can we say that his actions at that time merited him, Zocha, brought him the merit to have the 4 letters of Hashem's name put in his name? They were, of course, already there from his birth. So that's the Zera Shimshon's first question, and his most the most important question for the purposes of this piece. But the Zera Shimshon is going to ask an important second question as well, an ancillary question. Ve'od, and another question, Mahu, what did the Gemara mean? Hainu de Amar Rav Chanan. This is what Rav Chanan said. And the point of this question is that when the Gemara wants to quote a statement of a Tana or an Amor, if it wants to quote one of the great early and ancient sages in the Gemara, it says Omar. It should have said Omar Rav Chanan. Rav Chanan said, meaning Rav Chanan commented on the story of Yehuda and Tamar and made the point that we saw above in the Gemara Masechet Sota. Why does it say Hainu de Amar Rav Chanan? This is what Rav Chanan said, which is usually used when the Gemara is taking a statement that was made in a separate context and is applying it to a new context. And why would the Gemara do that as opposed to just saying Amar Rav Chanan? Rav Chanan said about this episode the point he made above. And so that will be the second question that the Zera Shimshon will get to, and we'll get to, God willing, as we proceed. But first, the Zera Shimshon is going to address his first question. V'yesh lomar, and we can say, Sha'av shenikra shmo be'es leidaso, even though Yehuda was given his name, which includes the 4 letters of Hashem's 4-letter name at the time of Yehuda's birth, nikra zocha. He can still be called, we can still use the word Zocha, that he merited this. Ve'ayin b'chidushenu l'kaman b'Megillas Esther. We're now moving to the top of the second column. And you should look in my chidushim, the Zera Shimshon says, in my novel commentaries on Megillas Esther, al-hahi de b'zayin ba'adar meis Moshe, u'b'zayin ba'adar nolad, on the statement from the Gemara in Megillah that Moshe Rabbeinu died on the 7th of Adar and also was born on the 7th of Adar. So on that statement in the Zera Shimshon's writing, he wrote something that's relevant here, and we'll continue. Masha Kosavnu Sham B'Shem Sefer HaChasidim. Take a look at what we wrote over there in the name of the Sefer HaChasidim. And now we need to pause because the Zera Shimshon assumes we know that reference or that we just are going to look it up. So the reference is to an idea that the Zera Shimshon brought over there from the Sefer HaChasidim, that events that happen in a person's life can impact the events of the person's birth. I want to repeat that so that everyone can think about that idea and the ramifications of that most unusual idea. The Sefer Hasidim is brought down by the Zera Shimshon, not here, but over there in his commentary in Megillas Esther, to say that events that happen and during the course of a person's life can impact the circumstances of that person's birth, even though they obviously haven't happened yet, since the child is only being born now at this moment. Things can happen now based on events that are going to happen later in the person's life. And now the Zera Shimshon continues with his idea that he wants to develop. Shaharei Ksiv, and we see the pasuk in Yirmiyahu says, Uveterem teitze merechem hiktashticha. Hashem says to Yirmiyahu, before you exited the womb, before you came out of the womb, before you were born, hiktashticha, I sanctified you. So this means that Yirmiyahu, who later in life became a Navi, a prophet of Hashem, already was sanctified before he was born. Ve'odam rinon, and we also say, and this quote is coming from a Gemara Masechta Shabbos that tells us, talks about the brachos that are said at a bris milah, and one of the brachos includes the words Asher kidash yedid mi beten. You, Hashem, sanctified this beloved baby mi beten, from the womb, from the mother's womb. The child was sanctified. That in particular is a reference to Yitzchak Avinu, who before he was born, it was known, the mitzvah was given that he was sanctified, so to speak, to have a bris milah after he was born. Shezo, and now the Zera Shimshon says, once you understand those ideas and those references from those places about events that happen in a person's life, influencing what happens at their birth, now he continues, Shezo hayuso kimo nevuah. It was a type of prophecy, Shetikra Shmo Yehuda, that Leah called her child Yehuda. That was a type of nevuah. V'chol ha'imahos nevios hayu, and all of the matriarchs were prophets or prophetesses. Kid'isa b'medrash Rabbah sof Parshas Toldos, as it states specifically in the Medrash Rabbah at the end of Parshas Toldos. V'karulo Yehuda, and Yehuda was called by the name Yehuda, lefi shahaya osid lizkos b'kiddush Hashem, because in the future he was going to merit performing a great act of kiddush Hashem at the episode with Tamar, and therefore he was given the name through a prophetic message from Hashem through Leah, that he would receive the name Yehuda, which, as we've stated, contains the 4 letters from Hashem's 4-letter name. So the Zera Shimshon in this paragraph has explained to us how we can talk about Yehuda meriting, being Zocha, the letters from Hashem's name, even though they were given to him at the time of his birth and not added later, as was the case with Yosef. And now he continues. Uvi Yosef lo hayu yicholim lasos kain. Regarding Yosef, it would not have been possible to put an extra letter in his name at his birth, because that wouldn't have accomplished what Hashem wanted to accomplish. Shahoil shekidei shem shomayim baseser, since Yosef sanctified Hashem's name in private, meaning when Ashes Potiphar was trying to seduce him and he refused and fled the scene, that happened when no one else was there. The Torah tells us they were alone in the house when that happened. So therefore, lo hayinoda lanu shekiddush shem shemayim. At the time, no one knew that Yosef committed an act of Kiddush Hashem. Im lo al yedei shehosifu lo os, and we would not have known about it unless a letter was from Hashem's name was added to his name, meaning, of course, referring to the pasuk in Tehillim, where Hey is added to Yosef's name. Kemoshe kosav ha'iyun Yaakov, as is written in the commentary called Iyun Yaakov. This point is made there. She'al yedei, going to the next page, top of the column on the right. She'al yedei shinoi shmo, through the change made to Yosef's name, yish'alu ha'olam hatam shel shinoi zeh. In the pasuk in Tehillim, when the Hey is added, everyone, of course, asks, why is Yosef's name written that way with a Hey in the middle of it? It should just be Yosef. What is the Hey doing there? And when they study the significance of the Hey being added to his name in the interpretation of Chazal, they'll see that it was given to Yosef because of the great act of Kiddush Hashem, of sanctification of Hashem's name, that he did in private. V'im, continuing the next paragraph, V'im ha'yu nikra koch be'eslei doso. The Zera Shimshon says, let's imagine that Yosef from his birth was given the name not of Yosef, but of Yehosef, with the hey added into it from the beginning. Lo hayu margishim klal. We would not have been sensitive to the extra letter at all. Shahare osa masa hayu b'seiser mamish, as the Zera Shimshon said, the action Yosef did was in private. No one knew about it, and we would not have known about it. When we read the Chumash story, we would know that he ran away, but we would not know the significance of that was connected to the hey in his name that he was given from when he was born, because of the Kiddush Hashem. Kemo hasota, similar to a sota, a suspected adulteress. Dichsiv ba, it's written about her. Vinistera, vehinitma'a, and she was hidden. She was in isolation, or not isolation, secluded, meaning she was secluded with a man who was not her husband. Vehinitma'a, and she was perhaps defiled. And that pasuk, the point that's being made is we don't know if she actually committed adultery or not, but she was in a secluded area, and therefore no one saw. We don't have the witnesses to tell us that's that she did commit adultery or not. That's why she's a suspected adulteress. How much more so in this Maisa, the episode with Eshes Potiphar. Eshes Potiphar machacheshes. Eshes Potiphar denied that she was trying to seduce Yosef, and she claimed to everyone that he came in and attempted to seduce her. Umishum hachi hutzrach lechizuk godol. And that's why we needed a great strengthening of the point that Yosef not only did nothing wrong, but he actually fled from her and refused to commit a sin and staunchly resisted her temptation, her temptations. And we know that Kedei lefarsem ha'emes, from the extra letter that was put in his name in order to publicize the truth about what happened. That's why Yosef could not have had the hey added to his name at the time of his birth. Avol Yehuda, but regarding Yehuda, shekidei shem shamayim b'farhesya, who sanctified Hashem's name publicly, hakol yodim bo, everyone knew that happened. That, of course, was an episode that everyone knew about, and the news spread about it. Because there were witnesses, therefore they were able to give him the name Yehuda from his birth, because everyone would be able to connect it after the incident with Tamar. Until that point, everyone, of course, thought Yehuda has a beautiful name, and they had their own interpretations as to why he was given that name. However, once the episode happened with Tamar and his public admission of guilt, and that Kiddush Hashem done at that moment, at that time, people said, oh, Yehuda, he has always had the name Yehuda with the 4 letters from Hashem's name because of the Kiddush Hashem, because of the sanctification of Hashem's name that he now did. Next paragraph. So here at this point, the Zera Shimshon has answered his first question about the difference between Yehuda and Yosef in terms of the how the letter was added to Yosef's name and how the 4 letters appeared in Yehuda's name from birth, and how it's legitimate to talk about Yehuda being zocha to that name, but how that type of approach or method would not have worked for Yosef. So each of them received a method that would work for each one in the proper context and their individual respective context, that would show that they had that they had performed acts of Kiddush Hashem, of sanctifying Hashem's name, one privately and one publicly. Now the Zera Shimshon is going to proceed to his second question. V'haidika Amar, in this that the Gemara says, Hainu de Amar Rav Chanan, that this is what Rav Chanan says, as opposed to just saying Amar Rav Chanan said, Mishum de lov hacha ikar milsa de Rav Chanan, because this story, this incident of Yehuda and Tamar is not the main episode that Rav Hanan was referring to when he made his teaching about the Kiddush Hashem. Elo lekamon beperek elu ne'emorin, but rather later in Maseches Sota, itamra be'anpei nafsha. The statement of Rav Hanan is made independently from the story of Yehuda and Tamar, and it's actually made about the story of Nachshon ben Aminadav jumping into the sea by the Kriyas Yamsuf. That's where Rav Hanan made his statement. And of course, Nachshon ben Aminadav was a member of Shevet Yehuda, but the point is that episode and that of Kiddush Hashem, of sanctifying Hashem's name, is the one where Rav Hanan actually made his statement. Amar Rav Hanan, and that's where it says Rav Hanan said. It doesn't say Hainu, but because he actually made his statement in reference to that episode. V'hosam Iker, and that is the main episode in which Rav Hanan wanted to make his point. Mishum de kaimolon, because we hold the ein kiddush Hashem befarhesia, a sanctification of Hashem's name is not considered public, eladafka bifnei asora mi Yisrael, unless it specifically happens in front of 10 Jewish people, of a minyan, so to speak, of Jewish people. And that, of course, happened at the Kriyas Yamsuf. K'dichsiv, as it's written, where do we know you need the 10 people? V'nikdashti b'soch b'nei Yisrael. And I will be sanctified among b'nei Yisrael. And the Gemara has a drasha to learn out how those words teach us that the real public sanctification of Hashem's name comes only when you have at least 10 Jewish people. Kidiisa bis Sanhedrin, as it is also stated in Masechta Sanhedrin, where the Gemara learns that out. Uve Shulchan Aruch Yoredei Siman Kuf Nun Zayin, and in the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, in section 157. So we see that this is not just a statement in the Gemara, but it's brought down in Halacha that to be considered a public Kiddush Hashem b'farhesia, you have to have 10 people, 10 Jewish people present. Uva oso Kiddush Hashem, hayusham kol Yisrael, samuch l'sfas hayom. And in that act of Nachshon ben Aminadav sanctifying Hashem's name by jumping into the Yam Suf, all of Bnei Yisrael was there next to the seashore. Aval kan lo hayusham asar Yisrael. But here, referring to the episode with Yehuda and Tamar, there were not 10 Jewish people present at that time. Yehuda, as the Torah tells us before the psukim that we looked at, Yehuda had left his brethren. He had gone away and he had moved to a different place. And therefore, there were not 10 Jews there when he did his admission and his Kiddush Hashem. Umishum hachi ka'amar hainu. And that's why the Gemara says, this is what Rav Hanan says, meaning Rav Hanan said something in a different context that we can apply here. The Hosam Ikar, because over there by Kriyas Yamsuf and Nachshon ben Aminadav is the main source. That's where Rav Hanan actually made his statement. V'hocholav Ikar. And here we're applying Rav Hanan's statement, but it's not the primary source. It's not the main case where he actually made the statement himself. So we see that the Zera Shimshon has made a close analysis of the words in the Gemara and showed us that the word Hainu has a lot to teach us about what actually happened with the statement of Rav Hanan. However, his explanation now leads him into a very interesting question. Next paragraph. Ve'im tomar, and if you say, Ihachi, if so, if that's true that Rav Hanan made his statement regarding Nachshon ben Aminadav, and the Gemara only was applying it to the case of Yehud and Tamar, then Lav Hainu de Rav Hanan, then this statement of Rav Hanan really doesn't apply. Shahare kan lo nikar parhesia, because the episode with Yehuda and Tamar, as we said, didn't happen in public. It didn't happen in front of 10 Jewish people. Shaloha yuasarim Yisrael. There were not 10 Jewish people there. Meaning, once the Zera Shimshon has explained why the Gemara said Hainu, and explained it by showing us that Reb Hanan made his statement about the case of Nachshon ben Aminadav and his extremely public act of Kiddush Hashem, now the Zera Shimshon says, according to that, why did the Gemara, what gave the Gemara the right, so to speak, to apply Reb Hanan's statement and connect it to the incident of Yehuda and Tamar when there was no public Kiddush Hashem? Now that we know public Kiddush Hashem is defined as being in front of 10 Jewish people, and there were not 10 Jewish people when Yehuda made his admission. Strong question. Continuing, next paragraph, bottom of the first column, V'yesh lomar, and we can say, D'mikol makam baseser lo mikre. Even though it's true that the episode with Yehuda's admission didn't happen b'farhesia publicly in front of 10 Jews, nevertheless, it certainly was not an act done in isolation. It was done openly, and there were other people there. Not the 10 Jews, perhaps, but there were other people there. His friends were there, and other people were there. Hoil shehayu sham osam shehigidu Yehuda shetamar zinsa. Since we know that at the very least there were other people there who came to Yehuda and told him that Tamar had apparently committed adultery, so we know that those people were present. Ve'od, and more so, sheYehuda Amar, Yehuda said, Hotzi uha v'sisaref, take her out and let her be burned. Hotzi uha, and that phrase from the Torah is said in the plural form. Dimashma shehayu sham lefacho shlosha. This shlosha b'nei adam. This tells us that there must have been at least 3 people there. Why? Well, the calculation is simple. The minimum of people who could come and tell Yehuda about Tamar's condition was 1. And when Yehuda said plural, use the plural form to say take her out and burn her, that had to be 2. So now you're dealing with 3 people. So at least 3 people were present when Yehuda made his admission and his Kiddush Hashem. The Mikru Rabim, and 3 people can be called in public. 3 people can be called a group, so to speak. That's based on a Gemara Yerushalmi. However, the Zera Shimshon continues, a statement in the Gemara Yerushalmi. Zera Shimshon continues, even though there were not 10 people there. So the Zera Shimshon says we can answer our question by still maintaining our distinction between the episode of Yosef HaTzadik, which truly was just Yosef and Eshes Potiphar. There were no other witnesses or people who saw his act of Kiddush Hashem, so it was truly baseser, it was truly hidden and done in seclusion. We can still distinguish between that and the episode of Yehuda's admission of guilt and of his saving of Tamar and his Kiddush Hashem, when there were definitely at least 3 other people there, and certainly it would seem if you read the story in Chumash, that there were more people than that. And another answer we can give, this is a more creative answer, you might say. Efshar sheYehuda giyar giyurim. It's possible that Yehuda converted other people in the area. We know that starting with Avram Avinu and continuing to Yitzchak and Yaakov, they would attract followers and constantly teach the lessons of monotheism and teach about belief in Hashem and serving Hashem. So the Zera Shimshon says, in all likelihood, Yehuda and all of the brothers continue that tradition and that practice. So Yehuda could have done conversion, and there could have been 10 people there. Vehem hayu beistino shel Yehuda, and those converts could have formed Yehuda's Bezdin, Yehuda's Jewish religious court. V'hayu gam sham asara, in which case there actually could have been 10 people who would be considered Jewish because of the gerus of the conversion that Yehuda put them through. Ella, but she'enu kol kach boror, but still, even if that is true, nonetheless, it is not clearly a case of a Kiddush Hashem b'varhesia, kemo hahi dekriyas Yamsuf, like the case of Nachshon ben Aminadav was a case, clearly a case, an extreme case actually, of a Kiddush Hashem b'farhesia because the entire Jewish people were present. V'hai disamich drasha zo lepasuk zeh, and the fact that we connect the drasha of Rav Hanan to the case of Yehuda, even though we perhaps didn't have 10 Jews there. Hainu Kemoshe Kosav Maharsha, it's based on something the Maharsha, a commentary on the Gemara, it's based on something he wrote. Shehoya lo lomar chomiha. The Maharsha says that when the Torah talked about Yehuda recognizing the items that Tamar sent, it could have said her father-in-law recognized the items and not have used his name Yehuda. Kemoshe Kosav La'el, as the Torah did write a few psukim before it, it referred to Yehuda not with his name Yehuda, but as Chamiha, as Tamar's father-in-law. Inami, or another example, Vayakira Vayomer, regarding to Yaakov, when the brothers brought Yosef's tunic dipped in blood, covered in blood, they brought it to Yaakov Avinu, and it says Vayakira, and he recognized it, Vayomer, and he said, Yaakov said, this is the tunic of my son. So there, in that pasuk, Yaakov's name is also not said. So too over here, the Maharsha points out, the Torah either could have referred to Yehuda as Tamar's father-in-law, or it could have referred to him just as he, like with a pronoun, like it did by Yaakov Avinu when they brought the Yosef's garment for him to look at. Kemo vayakiro vayomer ksones bini, as it says over there. And that is the actual pasuk, from Bereshis in the story of Yaakov, where it says Vayakira, and he recognized it, Vayomer, and he said Ksones Bini, this is the tunic of my son. The Torah could have said the same thing over here and not mention Yehuda's name. What is the point? The point is that the Maharsha says, from the fact that the Torah went out of its way, so to speak, to mention Yehuda's name, that's the key indicator to us that they're connecting, that Chazal, that the Torah, wants to connect Yehuda's name to the Kiddush Hashem that he did in that episode, and that's why his name is mentioned specifically, and that allows the Gemara to connect Rav Hanan's teaching about a Kiddush Hashem to the episode with Yehuda, because the Torah itself mentions Yehuda name as if to flash the name in neon lights. Look, Yehuda, look at the name Yehuda. Hashem's four-letter name is there, present in his name, because of this Kiddush Hashem, this great sanctification of Hashem's name that he performed. Continuing, Ve'od yesh lomar, and we can also say, Dib Yehuda lo hayu yicholim lasos kemoshe asu liYosef. With Yehuda, you really could not have done what was done with Yosef, which is add letters to his name later on. Shehosifu lo os achas kiddush Hashem. With Yosef, they added one name, the letter Hey, to his name, as we've mentioned before, based on the pasuk in Tehillim, where his name has an additional Hey. You did that with Yosef, but the Zera Shimshon says, don't even think about doing that with Yehuda's name. Shahare Yehuda kiddush Hashem shtei pa'amim. Yehuda performed a great kiddush Hashem twice. And you would have had to add two letters to his name. What are the two times? The first was as an individual, and that's the episode we've been talking about with Yehuda and Tamar. And the second is when Nachshon ben Aminadab jumped in the water as a representative of Shevet Yehuda, of the tribe of Yehuda. So because of those two massive Kiddush actions of Kiddush Hashem, you would have, in order to change Yehuda's name, you would have to add two letters. And since both of those episodes were either done in public without any doubt, the episode of the Yam Suf, or Barabim, or at least with several people there, as the episode of Yehuda and Tamar, you would have to add two additional letters to indicate the public quality of the Kiddush Hashem. it's not considered respectful to take all 4 letters of Hashem's name and add them. It would not have been respectful to add them to Yehuda's name later on, meaning to take the names and put them there beforehand is a respectful thing to do. But to act almost as if there's an afterthought, and because later on something happened, we're now going to start adding the letters of Hashem's name, all 4 letters of Hashem's name to Yehuda's name, that would not have been considered appropriate. V'lochein koru lokein mitachila, and that's why Yehuda had to have the 4 letters put into his name from the beginning. Kedei sheyeh kol Hashem ikar shemo, in order that all 4 letters would be the foundation of his name from the time of his birth. Zera Shimshon has a little more to teach us. Ve'adayin yesh ledaktek al haloshim. And still there's one more thing we need to analyze. Nikra kulo al shmo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And here again, the Zera Shimshon wants to draw attention to the specific words. Here, this is what the Gemara in Sota said. Nikra kulo, Yehuda was called completely al shmo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, on the name of Hashem. Shehaya lo lomar, the Gemara apparently or seemingly should have said, Zacha, Yehuda merited, Shehaya lo bishmo, that there was in his name, Kol shmo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all of the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kamosha Amar B'Yosef, which would have made the Gemara's comment more similar to the comment that it made about Yosef. So here again, carefully analyzing the text of the Gemara, the Zera Shimshon is bothered about the fact that the Gemara chose not to say that all of the letters of Hashem's name were put into or appear in Yehuda's name, but rather Nikra Kulo al Shmo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yehuda was referred to with the name that was completely based on the name of Hashem. It seems like a subtle difference, or at this point, maybe a difference that's not, we might say, what's the point of that difference? But the Zera Shimshon obviously has an explanation for it that he wants to bring to our attention. We can again bring in the Maharsha, the commentary on the Gemara. Yehuda yeshbo kol shem havaya. In Yehuda, you have all 4 letters of the 4-letter name of Hashem. Vehadalid nosefes. In addition, you have the letter Dalid. Yehuda, you have the Yud, you have the Hey, you have the Vav, you have the Hey. In addition, you have the letter Dalid. Lirmos, the Maharsha says, this is to hint to us al lashon hodaah, on the language of making an admission. The Dalid in Yehuda's name is supposed to again be like a flashing light to us, according to the Maharsha, to tell us why do you have a Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey, the 4 letters from Hashem's 4-letter name in Yehuda's name. Why are they there from his birth? Because of the letter Dalid, the last letter in the name, which represents the word Hodah, making an admission. And making an admission is what Yehuda did to deserve having the other letters be placed in his name at the time of his birth. That's the Maharsha's answer. The Zera Shimshon is now going to present his own answer. The Yoser Nira, and it would appear more likely, the Zera Shimshon says, Shahas Bo'olomar, that what the Gemara is really trying to teach us is Sha'afilu Hadalis Nikres al Shmo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara used the language that said that Yehuda's name was completely based on the Shem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because even the letter Dalid, not just the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, but even the letter Dalid in Yehuda's name are connected to the Shem Hashem. Nikres al Shemo Shafilu Dalid Nikres al Shemo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Dalid is also part of Hashem's name. Umishum hachi nakat haloshan, and that's why the Gemara used the language Zocha v'nikra kulo al Shmo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yehuda merited and was called with a name that is completely based on the name of Hashem. How is there a Dalid in the name of Hashem when there's only a Yud, a Hey, a Vav, and a Hey? The Isar bezohar chelik beis daf kuf Dalid. So here the Zera Shimshon says we need to know a statement in the Zohar, a Kabbalistic idea in the Zohar, where it says, Yehuda nukva bahade dechura misdabka. Yehuda's name brings together the a feminine aspect of the name of Hashem along with the masculine aspect of the name of Hashem. And then it explains the Yud, the Hey, and the Vav, Yehu, Do, Zechura. These three letters represent the masculine name of Hashem. Do, the Dalet Hey, the last two letters in Yehuda's name, Do Nukva. Those two letters represent the feminine aspect of Hashem's name. Vidok. Vidok means and examine carefully that statement in the Zohar, which is beyond our time and or at least my ability. And so we're going to have to leave that to other examiners. But the idea that the Zera Shimshon, the answer he's giving is that the Gemara used the language that seemed to say all of Yehuda's name is connected to the Shem Hashem. And he's answering and saying, yes, that is exactly what the Gemara wanted to teach us, because of the Kabbalistic teaching that the Yud, the Hey, and the Vav of Yehuda's name represent and are connected to the Shem Hashem. And so with their Dalet and Hey at the end, that's also connected to the Shem Hashem from that Kabbalistic approach. We have been taken on a tour de force by the Zera Shimshon, a powerful examination of a Gemara in Masechta Sota and all of these other sources used to explain what was being said in that Gemara in Masechta Sota, and all of that helps us understand in a much deeper way the psukim that we looked at in the beginning before we even started this piece in the Zera Shimshon. Yasher koach to everyone who joined in the learning tonight, and we look forward, God willing, to learning again together next week.